Hey, and welcome back to another video. And today I want to talk a little bit about gold standard and the resource network. Now, recently, CIG has said that uh, in the upcoming 4.0 patch, they will be releasing the resource network. Now, this is still tentative. We do not know if this will make it in the final version of the patch, but that is essentially what they want to do. So with this, the developers essentially said that they will be releasing about 15 of the most popular ships with this new resource network gameplay. Okay, so all of the ships will not have resource network, but all of the ships will not need the resource network in its current iteration. So what is the resource network's current iteration and gold standard? So far we have a couple of ships that are at gold standard and or have a bit of the resource network kind of sort of set up, so we can get an idea of what this gameplay is going to kind of look like. Okay, and so the one ship that we can kind of test this technology out in right now is the Hercules line of ships. So if you go in Arena Commander and you try out the experimental resource network mode, you can play around with this technology a little bit so you can see what that's like. Okay. On top of that, we've recently got the Retaliator Gold Standard, and it has a lot of the same features that the Hercules line has in it, uh, with the fuses and whatnot. They don't currently work in the persistent universe, but all of those little components and the fuses are actually in the ship. Okay, and last is the Gladius. We know that this has been gold standard in the past, but the goalpost has moved slightly since then. So we do know that there are additional things that the Gladius will need to get before it is completely finished. Now, the Gladius is heavily featured in Squadron 42 as well as a few other ships. So I wouldn't be surprised if those ships kind of get that gold standard pass, or they are kind of updated to be usable in Squadron 42 in that capacity. Okay, so we know these three ships are in the roster. When CAG talked about 15 ships being added, I do not think they were referring to these three, because we already have these three. So I kind of wanted to put out there the 15 ships that I think that CIG will work on getting added into the game for 4.0. And I kind of want to talk about my reasons why I think they will add these ships. So now let's go over and take a look at that. All right. So before us here, I have my list of ships that I think personally will get the resource network update and a kind of sort of soft gold standard pass. Now, what CAG has basically said is that gold standard is a moving goalpost. So essentially, as features come online, a ship will get this kind of stamp of approval that it is currently at the current highest standard that CIG has for ships. Okay, so right now, the current highest standard that CIG has for a ship is the Retaliator. This is a ship that has, removable components, removable weapons, resource network. It has, its intended features such as modularity. It is fully interactable. It has internal storage, and all of the buttons and knobs and all of that stuff is working. So that is essentially what gold standard currently is. Now that might change in the future with atmospheric flight, different operator modes, things like that. Now, these 15 ships, I think personally, will get the resource network added to them. Now, some of these I believe will get gold standard, and some of these I believe will just get the resource network update when 4.0 comes out. And as I go through them, I will kind of go through the ones that I think will just get the resource network update. So first on this list, I'm going to have to say the Polaris. Now, the Polaris is a ship that isn't released yet. This is a ship that I know CIG is working on. And I think one of the reasons why I think that it's going to get primarily gold standard is because of its intended gameplay. This, for a little while, will be kind of like the capital ship of the verse before the Idris comes out. And it will be a excellent proving ground for what capital ship gameplay will be like in the persistent universe. This is a ship that you definitely need a lot of players to man to be fully effective. So I think that it makes sense for CIG to want to make sure they get not only the resource network in, but all of its features, like the torpedoes working, engineering, everything that's surrounding this ship working and in order when it's released. Now, it should be relatively easy to get fully operational because it doesn't have any gameplay loops that they need to create to get this ship done. Again, we have torpedoes, we have man turrets, we have opening hangars. All of the things that the Polaris is, we already have in the game, like med bays, we have that where you can respawn your ship. So I think it would make sense for CIG to just get this ship to gold standard and just kind of get it out of the way. That way they don't have to go back to it. And it makes sense for newer ships coming out to get that kind of, okay, this is currently the highest standard of ship that we're releasing. Now, it doesn't mean that all new ships are getting that gold standard. There are a lot of exceptions, like the F8, the Hornet Mark II, the Saber. And the reason why I don't think those ships got that. Now, the Saber did get a gold standard pass, but I don't know if the Firebird has it. I'm still not sure if the Firebird is fully gold standard, but I do know that the Saber is gold standard now. So I think for CIG, for a lot of those ships, again, like the Hornet and the F8, they just wanted to get those ships out into players' hands, so they didn't do a gold standard pass on those. So they'll have to go back when they do the Hornet Mark 1 and the Hornet Mark 2 and do the gold pass for that. Now, the next ship that I think makes sense for CIG to add resource network to is, of course, the Reclaimer. This ship is a massive multi-crew gold mine. You can get players in the cargo hold, making boxes from RMC and all of the materials, doing a little bit of crafting there, having people in different seats in the turrets. This would enable a lot of gameplay for multi-crews, for orgs. It makes sense to get the resource management network working on this ship. We also kind of saw a bit of a sneak peek of that with the preview at CitizenCon with the ship on fire and the fire extinguishers and whatnot. So I think it's reasonable to assume that this ship will get resource management. Next thing is the Hammerhead as well. We have seen sneak peeks of the Hammerhead with the resource management network on it. The Hammerhead is a huge, really important multi-crew ship because it has so many man turrets. A lot of orgs and people like to get together to, operate the Hammerhead. So it makes sense to bring a full crew out with a Hammerhead and, have a lot of fun with it. So I think this is going to be another ship that is high on CIG's priority list of ships to get resource network and gold standard. The next one is the Starf. Obviously, the Pyro star system is going to be a lot larger than Stanton, so players would more than likely need to get their ships refueled to get to the inner planets or to get to the outer planets. Now, once you're in the inner planets, I believe there's enough space stations for you to refueling and get around reasonably. But to go between the inner and the outer planets, you might need a Starfare to get that done. And the Starfare already has, detachable fuel pods. The fuel system kind of already works. I know CIG was talking about wanting to redo the interior of the ship. I personally don't think that's necessary. I think we do need some ships that have that maze-like interior. I do not think it will get a gold standard, but I do think that it makes sense for CIG to add the resource network to the ship, just so it's ready for pyro and for the refueling gameplay that people might need. The next one I think they're going to do is probably the Caterpillar. Now I'm not super positive about this one. I'm kind of on the fence about. Now, it did have a few updates when they added tractor beams. This got a tractor beam. I do not think it will get a gold standard because obviously there's modularity. There's the doors that they need to fix to get open and whatnot. But I do think they might go through and add resource network to the ship because of cargo coming out. Cargo's coming out in 3.24, the very next patch. I just think it makes sense for them to go over this ship and get it ready for 4.0. This is a ship that a lot of people are going to use. I mean, the worst case scenario is that everybody just uses a C2 for bulk cargo between Pyro and Stanton, or they use a Hull C. But ultimately, I think that CIG should want to try to get more ships, more large cargo ships into the mix. But we'll see, because with the cargo missions, we're not entirely sure, what that's going to look like. Of course, there's a lot of economy rebalancing that CIG has to do. But I think that this is a good bet, but I'm just not 100% sure on it. Then, of course, the Hull C. The Hull C is kind of already up there in gold standard. I think adding the resource network to it is just kind of a no-brainer, because this is a ship that's going to go between Pyro and Stanton when that happens to trade cargo. And that's going to be an opportunity that I think CIG is not going to want to miss. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer for them to add multi-crew resource management to the Hull C, get players involved in using this ship in that capacity. And then, of course, we have the Constellation series. The Constellation series desperately needs an update. Okay, I think it's a great ship, but in terms of multi-crew, this ship can be very effective. Get a couple of people in the turrets. I have the turrets right now, but of course you have someone on the tractor beam, you have someone in the turret, you have a pilot, you're moving the cargo. I think this is another ship that makes sense to get resource management. Another multi-crew ship that I think makes a lot of sense is the Corsair. Now, this is a very popular ship, and what CIG essentially said is that they would choose the 15 most popular ships for multi-crew. And this ship isn't hugely popular for multi-crew, but it is an exploration ship. It does have a lot of DPS. I see a lot of people using this ship in the verse. It is a really good gunship. If you get people on the turrets, it can be very effective. I think this is a ship that CIG is going to want to get resource management on. Similarly, the Mercury Star Runner. A lot of people like to solo this ship, but it is a lot better with turret gunners because it does not have a lot of pilot control DPS. So if you get two friends in those turrets, then this ship really comes alive. I think that if CIG had the resource network added to this ship, it would transform its use case to a lot of people. A lot of people would be more incentivized to go with their friends in this ship. A similar thing is the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie is another good gunship, dropship. You're going to get a lot of players on this ship in those jump seats. You could drop a vehicle, Cyclone or something like that. This is a good ship to take out with a couple of people. Right now, in terms of, all gameplay and that, and whatnot. This is a very popular ship. I think it makes sense. It's one of those ships that I think is also very interesting too, because it is complete open. So the reason why I'm kind of on the fence about this ship is because it doesn't really have like a blocked off area. So the way the room system works is that to keep atmosphere in the ship, the doors need to be closed. So it might just be one of those situations where you just have to close the ramp to keep the atmosphere in there. But I'm not sure if they're going to rework that to close off certain areas. I'm just not sure about this one. So I'm kind of on the fence about these two right now. But I think so far it still kind of makes sense for CIG to add resource network to them. Then the mole, in my opinion, the mole is another no-brainer. This is designed to be a multi-crew ship. The saddlebags are now removable. You have, all of the adjustments that you can make with mining. I think mining is a very popular gameplay loop. A lot of people do use this ship solo, but with resource management, I think they're going to be a little bit more incentivized to take it out with their friends. I think it's kind of a no-brainer for CIG to add resource network to this. Next one is the Cutlass series. I think this really isn't that big of a deal. I don't really think it needs resource management, but I think it makes sense for CIG to actually make this ship gold standard, because the Cutlass series is some of those ships that a lot of people use. They're very popular. It's also in Squadron 42. I don't know when CIG is going to tackle all of the Drake ships, but I think that the Cutlass Black being as popular as it is, it just makes sense for CIG to get it up to gold standard and get it out of the way, so that because so many people use it, because it is kind of like that premium starter ship for a lot of people, paying $120 for a video game is not that unusual nowadays. If you kind of want to get that leg up as soon as you get into the game, kind of hit the ground running, a lot of people would consider $120. More than that is a little bit dicey, but at that price range, I think the Cutlass Black it's a very popular ship for a reason. So I think it makes sense for CIG to tackle it. Next one is the Freelancer. Freelancer series is another one of those series that's kind of in the Cutlass Black's arena. They are competing ships. The Freelancer series desperately kind of needs an update, in my opinion. We know that its components are not removable. CIG needs to get on that. Resource management wise, I don't really know how necessary it is, but I think it's another one of those ships that, because it's so popular, because it's so useful, because it's competing in that price range that a lot of people find so attractive, I think it would make sense for CIG to tackle it and just get it out of the way. Because again, at the end of the day, if CIG gets all of these affordable ships up to gold standard, a lot of people will start to feel like the game is a lot more polished. If you get ships that people don't fly up to gold standard, well, it's not really going to matter, right? Because nobody's flying those ships. So you definitely want to get ships that have the most utility in the game up to gold standard and get that gameplay experience similar across the board with all the ships that are kind of competing with it. Then is the Zeus. We know that the Zeus is going to be coming out around IAE. That's around 4.0 time. I think, again, 4.0 is going to come out at the end of the year. It would make sense because this ship is currently in production to just get it up to gold standard, add the resource network, add everything that a ship of this type should have at this point. In my opinion, it just makes sense because the Zeus is also another one of those ships that's going to be super popular. We already know how many people went in and bought this ship. This ship was hugely popular. It's going to be even more popular when it comes out and is actually flyable. I think this ship is going to be more popular than the Cutlass, more popular than even the Cutter, because it has good cargo capacity. It has good shields. It's in a good size. It's not too big, not too small to solo. For most people, this is going to be an excellent daily. I think that in a round this size, you just can't go wrong. In my opinion, this is what really a lot of people wanted with the C1. The C1 is definitely one of those ships that a lot of people picked up when it came out. The C1's basically, in my opinion, at gold standard at this point. It could use the resource network. I guess. But being a solo, I really see the C1 as more of a solo ship than the Zeus. The C1 really only has 2 seats. Of course, there would be a few things for the co-pilot to do. Uh, but I would say the C1's probably a good honorable mention, so we could add it here. Just add it to the bottom, honorable mention. It's a ship that, could replace the Valkyrie, honestly. If CIG doesn't want to tackle the Valkyrie, they might add the C1. So, they would be kind of interchangeable there. I think that would make a lot of sense. And then last, of course, the Redeemer. I think the Redeemer makes a lot of sense because it's a gunship. A lot of people use it as a multi-crew ship, get 2 people in those turrets, and this is one of the deadliest ships in the game. As deadly or even more deadly than the Corsair. This is the ship that a lot of people are going to go to do that multi-crew gunning gameplay. In my opinion, it just makes sense for CIG to add resource management, get it up to gold standard, get it out of the way. A lot of people are going to use it. During events, CIG has announced that this was in fact the most popular combat ship. It did in fact get some of the most kills in the game during those events. Of course, we'll get the statistics from Xenothreat this year, but in Xenothreat last year, the Redeemer was one of the most deadliest ships. It got some of the most kills in the game. You can look up the stats. CIG posted them after in-game events like that. So because of its popularity, because of its usefulness, I think CIG are going to tackle the Redeemer. Now, these are the 15 ships, of course, interchangeable. The Spirit series and the Valkyrie that I think personally CIG are going to try to tackle for resource management for 4.0. A couple of other honorable mentions that I wanted to talk about was, of course, the 8-9 Jump, the 600i, and the Karok. These are 3 extremely popular ships in the game. But I want to talk about some of the reasons why I don't think that they will get gold standard pass. 890 Jump, I think that CIG, they kind of just want to get it done and kind of sort of out of the way. They might add resource network to it, but because it's a luxury ship, I really don't think CIG sees it as a priority. They've kind of said that in the past. It's not really a priority because it's just kind of like an all-piece ship. It works right now. You can use the turrets, you can use the hangar, you can use the cargo area, you can fly it around, you can have parties on it. That's kind of all it needs to do right now. So I don't think it's a major priority for them to work on while they can go to other ships and, have dev time spent on that. The next one's the 600i. I don't think that they're going to worry about this one too much because it does need a full rework. They are working on completely redoing it. So it kind of just makes sense to do resource management on it right now. And the second reason is a lot of people use this solo. So to get resource management on it for multi-crew gameplay doesn't really make a lot of sense because players don't really use it like that right now. And it is another one of those luxury ships. So because it's a luxury ship, because players mostly fly it solo, and because it's getting a full rework, to me, it doesn't make sense for them to do resource management on. Next one is the Karok. The Karok is a ship that they could do resource management on, but it's a ship that, in my opinion, has so much technical debt. I think CIG are going to ignore it for this one. You have the modularity, you have the cargo pods, you have the repair room, you have the navigation deck, you have the drone room. There's just so much technical debt on this ship right now. You have the canopy, the retractable canopy on the front that players were asking about at recent Boss Citizen, and CIG essentially said that they're not working on that anytime soon. So in my opinion, that's kind of just like a good indicator that they're not focused on the Karok right now. The Karok has too much technical debt. It's something that they'll get back to at a later date. So I don't think that they're going to focus on getting this ship up to gold standard. In my opinion, I think because they're doing ships based on manufacture, when they go over and do all the anvil ships, I think maybe they'll get back around to the Karok. There are also a lot of smaller ships that need some updates. Obviously, I think that the Hawk is going to get a little bit of update because of Bounty Hunter. I know that CIG was working on that a little bit. They did change the prisoner pod. Of course, the Hornet. The Hornet needs a gold standard pass. It's in Squadron 42. I'm kind of surprised that They released the Mark II without the gold standard pass, without removable components. That was a little surprising. The Aurora does need a little bit of reworks. The cargo kind of works, but it's just too janky. It is a starter ship. This is the ship that a lot of people are gonna, buy with the game. I think it needs a better experience than it currently has. The Reliant could be a great ship, but again, it doesn't have those removable components. The Avenger Titan is another one, doesn't have those removable components. It's an extremely popular ship, but it still feels old. The interior doesn't really work with the current metrics. And then of course the Mustang, they did add the cargo box to the Mustang, so it's a little bit usable. But I think it needs those removable components and whatnot to really come alive. You really want those starter ships to be closer to gold standard, because these are the ships that people are going to buy first. New players are going to get into the game with ships like these, ships like the Cutter. The Cutter is so popular because it is the closest ship to gold standard. It's the closest starter ship to gold standard. And then of course you have ships like the Sulin, which in my opinion doesn't really need to be gold standard, but it kind of is close because it does have those removable components. It's one of those things that I think that CIG needs to pay attention to, get some of those smaller ships up to par with where you want the game to be for 4.0. But that's me. That's what I think. That's my list so far. I want to know what you guys think. Comments down below. What do you guys think about this list? What do you guys think the 15 ships are going to be that get resource management? What do you guys think about gold standard, the goalposts moving? I want to hear from you. That's why I post these videos, is to talk to you guys and hear what you have to say. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me again in another one of these videos. I post pretty long videos, and I know a lot of you watch the whole thing all the way through, and I see a lot of the same faces in the comments down below. I'm trying to grow this channel. I'm trying to reach more people, and I really appreciate all of your support, liking the videos and watching them all the way through. It really means a lot to me. But that's going to be it for me here in today's video, you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. Like I always say at the end of these videos, you guys, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Salute.